Hello, I'd like to talk about IELTS Task 1 essays, or more particularly, planning for IELTS Task 1 essays. Making a plan is a very important part of the writing process. In fact, it's probably the most important part, and here's why. Time is of the essence. You only have limited time, so you need to use it wisely. And making a plan is a very wise use of your time. When you make a plan, you are able to jot down synonyms or other alternative word forms. You are able to get a good overview of the graph or the chart as you go through the information. You can pick out important details that you wish to discuss in your essay, and you can decide what is the best order to present your information. You only have 20 minutes to write your essay, but 3 to 5 minutes doing these things at the beginning of your time is going to actually give you extra time to perfect your writing, make sure your sentences are correct, and make sure that you have included all the information in a very logical way. So let's look at the ways that we can make notes. Here I'm going to show you how to make notes about your vocabulary options. As you know, in the IELTS Task 1 essay, you need to paraphrase the graph title as a part of your introduction. And quite often, students will just go through and insert a synonym at every word that they possibly can. Don't do this. This is not a very good way to paraphrase your title. I've made another video that shows you what you can do instead and offers some other strategies, and I will link to that video in the description box below. But for now, I'm just going to talk about the vocabulary and how you can make some vocabulary notes. So you want to make some notes about synonyms and word forms. You want to get a word bank of alternative vocabulary that you can use to show your word knowledge. So we've got expenditure, we can say spending. We've got countries, we can say nations. We've got consumer, that's an adjective here. We can use it as a verb, or consumer as a noun, or we could even use the noun form consumption. We can look at the numbers. We've got 500,000 and we've got 250,000. Make a note here. And then the country names, we could also use the adjectival forms French and British as alternatives to give variety in our writing. So it's very important to bear in mind that this is a brainstorming activity, and every alternative, every variation that you come up with is not necessarily going to appear in your essay. You can pick and choose the best options. You don't have to use all the synonyms or all the alternative word forms, and in fact it's better if you don't. Let's have a look at the other kind of note-taking, where we look at the content of the graph. So an IELTS exam is not a data analysis exam, it's an English language exam. The examiners need to know that the candidates are able to describe information by making comparisons or contrasting information or putting items into groups. So in order to do this, and in order to use the language of comparison or superlative effectively, you do need to know what you are describing. A weaker candidate will start at the left and then give the numbers and the items and just work through describing everything in a very orderly fashion. Basically, this is writing a list. This is not writing an essay, and you will not achieve a very high band score if you do that. You need to be able to group the information in a more meaningful way. And one way to do this is to actually look at the numbers and make a note of the numbers. So here we go. Instead of just writing down in your essay, consumers in France spent £400,000 on cars in 2010, just put a note here. French spent 400,000, British spent 450 on the same thing, and the difference in spending between the two is 50,000. Likewise with computers, French spent 380, British spent 350. That's a difference of 30,000. That's not very much. We can see that already there's a difference. Books, perfume, and then finally cameras, where we can see there is actually a difference in spending of 200,000. That's a very large difference. So now we've got a big contrast that we can talk about. The smallest difference, spending on computers, and the largest difference, spending on cameras. We can also compare who spent the most. We can see just by looking at the bars that British consumers spent more than the French on cars, on books, and on cameras, whereas the French spent more than the British on computers and on perfumes. So by making notes of this along here, we've set out all the information, and it's becoming clearer what we have to talk about. We're not just moving from the left to the right and listing things in a very dull and uninteresting and unanalytical way. Another note that I made was the past tense form of the verb spent. In normal spoken English, it wouldn't be a terrible mistake if we did use the present tense when we're talking about a graph that is right there in front of us, even though it's describing things that happened in the past. But this is an IELTS test, it's a language test, and the examiners have put a date here to make it clear that these are events in the past, and the candidates should use this opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge of the past tense in order to achieve in the grammatical part of the scoring in their IELTS exam. So as you can see, we've set out all the information. We've got a nice checklist for us to work from when we are writing our essay. And our checklist will give us vocabulary options that we can refer to as we're writing. It will give us an overview. It tells us what the graph is showing us. It will tell us what information should be highlighted, what is the most, what is the least. And very importantly, it provides a checklist so that we can make sure that we have covered all the information in the graph, which is a very important part of the task achievement. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have found it useful. If you've liked it, give it a like. If you have something to say about IELTS Task 1 essays, planning, etc., please share the knowledge in the comment. And if you'd like to, you can subscribe to be notified of videos when they are posted. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to talking to you again in the next video. Bye-bye.